Hi everybody, I've got a big chunky monkey Jane Austen. It is chunky. When I open this puppy up, it's gonna go whoosh. So let's get to it. What does it measure? It measures, just measuring not the lace part, 7 by 4 3/4, and it's got a 2-inch spine, so it's a nice size journal. And on the front, I kept it simple. It's got some images of two people in that time period, and of course it says 19th century, which was the time period, with a piece of a something fabric behind it. We'll just call it fabric since I seem to have gone poof in my brain. Sorry silk here that's been stitched. Isn't that pretty? That is so pretty. And there's the opening here. Let's go inside. On the inside, I used coffee dyed paper, and can't tell if I'm in. Yeah. Sorry about. I've got I used on the inside. I used coffee dyed paper, and we have some sari silk here, and I tied on a safety pin, and it's got a little charm and a little dangly. And it's a doily for a pocket with the lace all the way around. And inside I added a booklet, and it's got some lace and part of a doily. And it's got all different kinds of papers inside to journal on. Over here, got a nice image, stamped image of, says postcard, and in gold thread. I sewed round and round and around, made that ridge, and we have a vintage lady here stitching around the page, and inside coffee dyed papers. Get in there. There we go. And of course the snippets. And these are a great place to just start journaling. You don't know what you want to do? Pick these up and journal on them. Just write. Another Jane Austen image. Here we go. That's my buddy Wickham, because he was a bad boy. And it says, he lies with skill, especially by omission, taking care not to mention his own faults. He was a rascal. And here's the stitching from the other side. More stitching. It's all done in gold. And there's Bennett, a simple man of a large fortune. What a fine thing for our girls. Real pretty coffee dyed papers. She reminds me of Lydia. Every time I look at her, I think Lydia. Real pretty fabrics here, seam binding. Some more of that fabric that matches the front, and some lace going down here with some stitching. And I let the the ruffle from the other side peep over. Over here's a little tag and another little tag with part of a doily and a safety pin. And on top of the ruffle, I added an image. Some ephemera here. And that's just there for decoration on a ruffle with a leaf pattern stitch. And some more ladies. And this has got lines on it, but it's very, very faint. And here we have a card that was stamped and then sewn around, and postcard image in the back. The safety pin is here to hold this down. Oh, don't you do it. Safety pin. I don't know why I've noticed I do that. I look at a paper clip and I call it a safety pin, and I look at a safety pin and call it a paper clip. Go figure. Here's a little teapot on a little patch with some seam binding and some unidentified fabric with a button. And up here I stitched the leaf pattern And it lifts up with a nice place to journal. And some rose pattern fabric in the background. And I just put some seam binding pieces and just let it dangle for something different. More ephemera. Here's another little pocket with all different kinds of fabric and seam binding, and a safety pin with a pearl and gold bead and a little rose charm. Real pretty floral in the background with stitching down the side. Got a little silhouette here and another Jane Austen-like image. Pride and Prejudice. I mean, wouldn't be a Jane Austen book without that in there. The stitching from the other side with the rose pattern in the background there. And some ephemera here. Look at the shoe. And some of the images I just cut out and left them by themselves without any background whatsoever. And I like that look. I think it's real nice. Stitching around here. Isn't that beautiful? And this has got muslin cloth behind it. De Bourgh. I take no leave of you, Miss Bennet. I send no compliments to your mother. You deserve no such attention. I am most seriously displeased. That was one cranky woman, wasn't she? There's a card on a dictionary page. Place to journal on the back. And then with the pocket, I left the plain back because it's got real pretty stitching there. And I used a seam binding bow, and after I tied the bow together, I just put some little danglies on. And a little lady. A little lady. This is the end of the first signature. We're on to the second. Some gauze here and some fabric and some real pretty music with some ladies here. Over here, these are just like mini collages. I did some lace and some fabric. That's part of a curtain actually, and a safety pin with some fabrics and papers. This is a graphic I sell in my Etsy store. It's just a different shape. Jane Austen image there with that's lined paper. I don't know if the camera's picking it up, but it's lined. Real pretty piece of white, shiny lace, and then some coffee dyed seam binding for contrast. More lined paper. A nice big pocket here with gold stitching and a parasol and some floral in the background there. And I put in one of my little trifolds I like to make. It's got all kinds. It's just like a little collage. It's got some fabric and papers, different papers. Opens up and you've got places to journal. You could put an image here if you wanted. And there's the back, just coffee dyed. Isn't that cool? It goes back in here. And more ephemera here. Real pretty. Another little mini collage with some pretty font and a lady and some sari silk there on a music page. The word vintage. Over here, some more fabrics. Little piece of, that's probably a little table doily. And some ladies. Lucas. I am not a romantic, you know. I never was. I only ask a comfortable home. She's the one that married Mr. Collins. She asked for a life of trouble, didn't she? Real pretty image here. With some lace and stitching. And I'll just let it come on the back. Here's a real pretty image in the background. And a lace pocket with a pretty blue bow. And some coffee dyed cards with doilies and fabrics and laces. A little mini pocket. Gold stitching down the side. Over here, this is sari silk and some muslin and part of a flower with a little star brad. Real pretty lady here, and I put some pink fabric with some lace, and I shrunk down in my computer. These are like calling cards. When they would come to call on somebody at their home and they weren't there, they would write their name and their little message and put it in a tray by the front door to let them know they came by. Over here's a tuck spot with one of those letter envelopes that I like to make and use. And this is a tag here with some image of some purses and then a little fan that I made with some seam binding and lace. It just acts to hold that down, and it looks pretty too. More stitching. Again, there's muslin behind her, muslin fabric. Gardener. There is something a little stately in him, to be sure. More pretty images. Little collage here with some fabrics and ladies. I just let the stitching come on down. So you could turn the book the other way and write this way.
Nice.
Up here, some seam binding and some lace with some ladies, and then I tucked a little vintage image there. Get that back over there. And some fabrics and a stamped on piece of muslin. And another vintage lady. Jane Austen lady. Here's another tuck spot. It says note. That's one of my patches I make with some fabrics behind it. Real pretty floral background. You could even write on these with a piece of coffee dyed paper with the pinks. That's the other part of that thing that I made. A pretty lady here with some stitching. Another little collage with some fabrics and been stitched around, and then the stitching from the other side. This is the beginning of the third signature. Excuse me. Collins. Lady Catherine will not think the worse of you for being simply dressed. She likes to have the distinction of rank preserved. Lord have mercy. That Mr. Collins, he was something else. What a hoot. More stitching there. You have to have this in a Jane Austen book. You must allow me to tell you how I ardently admire and love you. And she threw him out the door, didn't she? First time, 19th century. A piece of sari silk there with some music paper. Another little mini collage there. Some ephemera. Yep, she just chewed him out and threw him out the door. I would not have done that. I would have said, yes, sir, thank you, I will marry you. It's Colin Firth. Over here is another little piece of seam binding with some ladies. Bingley. Let's see. Yes, and her petticoat. I hope you saw her petticoat. 6 inches deep in mud. I am absolutely certain. Some stitching there. Another ruffle with a pretty image. Stitching all around this page. And I just really like the look of the stitching and the lace for the center of this signature. I thought that was pretty. The contrast. And look how the coffee dyed came out. Over here we have a nice little pocket sewn in gold. It's kind of a mauve-y pink with a key. And another Jane Austen-like image. And this is a little booklet. This postcard established in 1859, and that is some of that white burlap that I have. And I just cut the papers to fit the tab. stitched on the edges. It's just plain coffee dyed paper. Little stamping going on in here. Very light. I thought postcard was appropriate for a Jane Austen book. Mail was very important back then. Now we get a lot of junk mail, don't we? Another pretty image here with some lace behind it and the gold stitching. And here is saying, I'm not sure what Jane Austen book this came out of. It says, her heart did whisper that he had done it for her. So I don't know if that's Emma, possibly. I don't know. Some seam binding here in lace with some script stamping and a nice floral background. And I put a little notebook with the different papers in there. And roughed up the edge. More stitching. More ephemera. And here's all the little guys right here. Little dudes and dudettes. There is nothing I would do not. There is nothing I would not do for those that are really my friends. And I don't know what Jane Austen that comes from either. Another tab. Some fans with the gold around the edge. And of course it says Jane Austen. A pretty image there. And let's save the best for last. Mr. Darcy. My affections and wishes are unchanged, but one word from you will silence me on this subject forever. Dun dun dun. Mr. Darcy. See, I like the old Pride and Prejudice. I like the one with Colin Firth. That's my favorite. And this is a doily here with the sari silk and some filigree and a gold bead. And inside I put a petal pocket and tied it with some seam binding. And this is made from graphic 45 paper. It's real pretty. I thought it went nicely in this book. And you could put something in here if you like. Got a teapot. Just put that back. Well, I'm not going to make y'all sit here and watch me tie this up. And there's the back of the journal. See? It's a big one. Chunky monkey. I like those. And there's the front again. Real pretty. Soft. Soft looking. It's a hard cover, but it's soft looking. I want to thank y'all for being here with me today. And I will see you in the next video. Bye-bye.